Welcome back to the Garden Hutch. Today we'll discuss week 22 of 2022. Let's get going. Well, week 22 was the first week of June. So what I wanted to kind of do is kind of go over the weather. Now here in Arkansas, June through probably September or so, it's pretty consistent. We'll go through periods of drought, but it's going to be hot, it's going to be humid, and we're going to get intermittent rain. So far, it's been about every other day, so I've only had to water once this week, and I probably didn't even have to do that, but we got 2 days of rain. The highs are in the upper 80s, so that's okay. One of the things I do want to mention, though, whenever it gets humid like this, right, and then you have like downpours, because here, whenever it rains, you could easily get inch and a half in just an hour or two. So when that happens, you have a lot of issues that can pop up in your garden. And one of the big things that can come up is tomato blight. So just make sure you have your hydrogen peroxide on hand in case you start seeing blight on your leaves. And if you live in our part of the country, it's going to happen. Even some of my friends up north, they get tomato blight as well, but it's usually later on in the summer whenever it happens for them. So I just wanted to cover that real fast, but the weather's been great. It's been kind of what we expected for the first week, probably all year. It's been a really strange weather year. But as we're going into this, we're going into the meteorological summer, I think is what they call it in June. Of course, the solstice isn't until the end of the month, so that's whenever, like, technically summer starts. But anyway, so as we're going into this, I kind of wanted to take stock a little bit and start thinking about what has happened that has gone well. And what is it at this point that I would redo for next year? Because these are the notes that we like to keep in our garden as we go along. That way, whenever the fall comes and everything starts dying back, we can have that image in our head of we want next year's garden to look like. Another thing I was kind of thinking about going into this week was, these raised beds here in the top garden, almost everything except for the pallet garden, it is the first year of these beds. So I was kind of going back and forth on, I was like, well, are they successful or not? But I think considering it's the first year, we've done pretty well. So, here on the Garden Hutch, just to be plain, our goal is to use raised beds, as much organic matter as we can, keep as many of our own seeds and that sort of stuff, to be as self-sustainable as possible. And right now, we're doing a pretty dadgum good job, right? So this time of year, we have squash coming out, a lot of squash daily coming out. We're still able to eat a salad every day with the eggs from the chickens. So we're doing pretty good as far as being self-sustainable. Again, the reason for today's video, besides just doing our weekly vlog, is I kind of want to show everybody where I feel like that we're succeeding at this point going into the summer and where we have areas of opportunity. So we'll start up here in the old garden, and we're going to look at our peas. We have gotten some peas off of these guys, but as you can see, they're not doing really great in these big buckets. So I would consider all the way around, the peas are the first area of opportunity. We've already decided that we're going to do a trellis, kind of like we do with our pole beans, for our peas next year. That way we can get more peas. We really enjoy them. The problem with these guys are the chickens, whenever you can see these leaves down here, right? What happens is when they're big and full, they'll come up here outside of the wire, and the chickens will peck on them, and that just kind of causes trauma on the plant. So that didn't work as well as I'd hoped. But it's the first year we're trying it, so going forward, we'll know that we'll put these, the snow peas and the sugar snap peas, they're going to go behind the fence in the top garden. So another failure, like right off the bat, are our plan to cover these areas with beans. So when we went through and designed these beds, we kind of knew from the beginning there were going to be 5 or 6 little areas that we thought we could put beans in. Our idea was, in this case, we're letting the butternut squash grow up to where it kind of crowds the area, and then we can overplant the beans. And what we were thinking is it's going to keep the chickens out because it'll be too crowded in that area for the chickens. I was wrong. The chickens just got right in there, let them grow nice and tall with big old nice leaves on the top, and then they just got in and wiped them all out. Keeping on down here, this butternut squash is up. We have several, we'll step around here so we can see. I mean, there are several nice butternut squash that'll probably be off probably early July-ish or so for some of these. I consider this at this point success. Now, this could still go downhill if we don't take care of it, of course, if we get an outbreak of like powdery mildew or some bugs or something on it. But our plan is to take care of these things so far. Now this little area right here was something that I was a little concerned about at first because it was so, at the time, it was just barren. I didn't like the way that it looked, right? So I like the way the cucumbers have turned out with the bamboo trellis behind them. So at this point, that's a success. We haven't got any cucumbers as of yet, but I like the way they're growing, and I sort of like the way the bamboo trellis itself looks. Also, I would say the deal is something right through here that I would also consider a success. It's starting to fill in nicely, so I was a little concerned at first, but deal is a warm weather plant, so it'll start bushing out now that we're, you know, upper 80s, low 90s on a routinely basis. And again, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the nights are warmer too. So the more I look into this, a lot of these warm weather plants, it's actually the evening temperatures that will dictate their growth patterns. So, and this up here, these onions, they are fantastic. We are still thinning them out, and as we do, the neighbors just get bigger and bigger bulbs. So all in all, most of this top row is a success, minus the peas. You can see up here again, we do have some really nice, look at that guy, some really nice delicious peas. We'll take those and put them in our afternoon salad. So, but again, we have some thoughts on these buckets. If you have any ideas what you like to grow the most in buckets, put it down below. Let us know. Maybe we'll try them next year and give a shout out to you when we do. I was concerned about our sweet potatoes at first. Our sweet potatoes look like they're going to be fine. So I would say so far these are a success. Again, we'll just plant them later next year. We will also make sure that we cover them to keep the chickens out of them, and make sure they get plenty of water for the first week they're in the ground. And I think sweet potatoes are going to be something that we plant as a staple going forward. Also, we're going to be able to start eating the leaves on these next week. They're starting to bush out big enough, so keep a lookout for that. I'm really excited to start sauteing and adding these to the salads, because we're losing other lettuces and greens, and we'll get to that here in a minute. Some more overt failures. Look at this. This whole bed was nice and green and covered, and as soon as the beans got their nice leaves on them, of course our chickens came out and just destroyed them. But on a better note, behind you can see these cucumbers back here are also doing well. We have baby cucumbers on them, so I'm ready to start making tomatoes and cucumbers. That's my favorite summer dish. So up here, these are working out so far. Now, what I'm curious on this is, we're starting to get the flowers, you can see in there. Once these tomatoes start turning red, I'll be interested to see if our little idea of just blocking the bottoms to get them started, if that prevents the chickens from getting in there and destroying them or not. So right now, this part up here, I would consider a success. We do have a different idea for next year though. See, we're thinking next year doing all cucumbers and squashes in this part, and our sweet potatoes, and just doing this whole area and just that, and letting it go crazy, and then having everything else behind the fences to prevent the chickens from getting it. So again, real fast, these are just this stuff here. These are our spaghetti squash. They're coming along nicely. Well, again, probably early July-ish or so, we'll probably start eating these winter squashes, and they'll go, hey, there's an ant. They'll probably start, like I said, early July, picking them, and we'll be getting them all the way through probably September-ish or so, as long as we take care of the plants. So again, this side of the trellis going up are the spaghetti squash, and then over here we have the butternut that'll be coming up over the top, and then this is the bamboo trellis, which is the next thing I'd like to discuss. But you can see this is doing well so far, right? So these are just the two spaghetti squash. They should come up, come over, and I just want them to cascade down this side. And what I'm hoping now is that I can get them to come all the way down, and then I can use them to fill this cover area, because again, my bean idea was a failure. But that's okay, you live and you learn. The chickens love the beans, so I guess there's that. The eggplant, by the way, have made a remarkable recovery. You can see it's still a constant struggle with the flea beetles. So, and for whatever reason, this back one back here, you can see that leaf. The chickens will just peck that one little leaf as it comes up, and I'm not sure if that guy's going to get big enough to put off eggplant or not, but I have a feeling that going into these next couple months where it gets hot, that these guys will be fine. So that's what we're hoping. We're hoping to get eggplant, by, I don't know, 1st of July-ish or so. Here we go. Now, we've talked about this a lot. Cats have destroyed this part of our onion bed. So I'm not sure what I'm gonna do, but you can see some of these onions are really good size and they're still swelling a bit. So I'm gonna let those go. We'll take them out, cure them, and we'll have onions for, the summer until our other 2 beds are ready. But this area right here, I think what I'm gonna do is when I pull this, I think I'm gonna try some late June squash. And I haven't decided what kind yet. We'll see. But I might put a couple zucchini in here, or I might go with some more of the scallop squashes, because this down here so far has been a fantastic area for us. We have gotten yellow squash. We pick it daily. It's delicious. We pick them small this time of year so that the plant itself will put off more. And I trim these much like I do our zucchinis from the bottom down, but you can see there are blooms everywhere. There are no signs of the bollworms, minus the one we had on the zucchini in the early year. We've been putting that diatomaceous earth down quite regularly, so that's done its job thus far. But we have just a mix in here between the scallop potatoes and the yellow crookneck. And again, up to this point, these guys have been prolific. This is part of our summer eating strategy, right? Is all of this squash, we eat it as soon as it comes off. We eat it fresh right out of the garden. And some days we have nothing but squash, or you can do like a squash quiche or something along those lines to make your food go farther. But when it comes to sustainability, being able to eat fresh food is fantastic, especially whenever you're cultivating food that you can preserve for later on in the winter at the same time. Okay, so overall, how would I say that we've done in the raised beds on the old garden? I would say it's kind of a mixed bag at this point, to be honest with you. We are getting a lot of squash. The onions did really well, except for the area where the cats took them out. But we did get nice big bulbs off of the onions, so that's a good thing. So if I was rating it on, say, like a, I guess an academic scale or whatever, I would probably say it's a B- or a C+ so far. So I want to kind of just go over real fast this little area down here, because a lot of this stuff it's its first year. So minus the fig tree, of course, it's been here for a while. So have the elderberries. But whenever you sit back and you look at this, all of these beds down here and our strawberry beds are all new. We are actually getting our first blooms and our first strawberries. Anybody who follows the channel knows that we've been cutting the flowers off all the way up till June 1st. So before long, we will be having our first strawberries, and we'd like to show those as well. And the garlic is doing remarkable. We have these little onions down here too. They're doing pretty good as well. The bulbs on them aren't quite as big, but they are super sweet. So we'll go through and cultivate all of this stuff. But what I wanted to show you on the garlic is, again, the first year growing it. And from everybody I've been told, you wait until the 3rd leaf up starts to brown and die back. So that would be this leaf here. So we go from the bottom, this is 1, 2, and 3. So whenever this leaf looks like this leaf, we'll go ahead and dig them all up. I'll try to get it, probably what I'll do is whenever they all have a mean, where the 3rd leaf is brown, and then go, that way I can do it all at one time and I don't have to try to go out and guess which one each day or whatever, worry about disturbing the bulbs of another one. And then we'll show that as well. So I would think, maybe My guess is first week of July, but you know, again, this is the first year that I've done garlic in this manner. Now, we do have a lot of wild garlic that we use for pickling, but we treat it significantly different. We want this garlic to be able to cure and use throughout the year in our cooking. So this is doing really well. I'm not sure, I'm not going to grade that just yet because it's so close for us to be able to dig the garlic up and pick strawberries. We'll save that for another time. But hey, there's one of our honeybees just flying around. What's up, bee? All right. So again, don't eat that bee, boo. No, don't do it. She loves to bite any sort of insect. She got stung when she was a puppy and have never forgiven them. So anyway, strawberries, again, we haven't gotten anything. We just now started letting the flowers go, so we'll sit back. Now, I do want to say this is a third year. Most everything else, it's the first year, right? But this area here where we put this berm in and the blackberries on them, this is its third year. And this is the year that we're supposed to be getting a yield. And it looks like that we're going to get a pretty good harvest. I mean, this whole bush looks just like this. They're full all the way down. But the exciting part are these little brambles that are coming up. These brand new shoots that are filling out. They're nice and thick, and I think they're going to serve what we want, right? The whole purpose is to hold the dirt in place, but it also to be edible. So we're gonna hold off and see, but it does look like we're starting to get the big brambles coming out of the ground that I wanted. That'll help hold all of this in place when we mulch it yearly. We haven't started getting the ground cherries out yet, but they look like we're going to get a lot of them. So we did have, believe it or not, we had one ground cherry. It was a little small, but it was ripe and it was delicious. So I will say ground cherries are the best, but we're not sure when they're going to start coming off. And I know there's a list of folks that would like to try them that we know. So, but I'm going to hold off grading those guys. There's some more of those brambles right there that I was talking about. So that's encouraging. Is that your favorite grass? But again, the blackberries, we are really enjoying them. I would say overall at this point, it hasn't filled in. You know, there's still these little gaps. So I would say I'll give this like probably just a straight B. Now, it could change a lot. If we get more berries and they're sweet, you know, we can move this up to a B+ or so. But if it just stays kind of like this or whatever, we'll probably stay in the B's. If they all fall off or they're super sour, then, you know, obviously the grade will degrade from there. But and down here, again, these are just strawberries. They're in the same as the rest of them. But we have this little pollinator area down here that we put in to sort of stop a lot of the flow coming down this hill, and it has worked out remarkable. So one of the few things that I think is you know, borderline A is this area right down here. The pampas grass and the vinca, all of that stuff has worked. Leslie's got a marshmallow plant down there as well. The bees love that little area, especially when it's really hot, so you can water it and keep water down there for them. That right there, that's another fig tree, and it's on year 3 as well. We got one baby fig last year. I don't know that I'll rate the success off of this fig tree on how much fruit we get this year. All I need from it is for it to kind of do like the other fig tree that we looked at, and just kind of bush out a little bit and sort of give privacy for this bottom area. That's sort of where we want to make into our picnic / gathering area. Have it shaded out all year round as well. So that's what we're hoping to get out of this. So these down here are coming in really well. We bought this pollinator mix and we put it in really thick down here. And then as we moved, the rest of it were all seeds that we had saved from last year. So I kind of want to see what the difference is between the pollinator bunch and our own. Admittedly, I did put this in way too thick whenever I put it in there. So that's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. But these right here, this is just a new bed that Leslie put in. We got some pollinators. I believe we have a butterfly bush, I believe, and bee balm in here. So let's take a step into the top garden. Now again, I know I keep saying this, but I just want to remind everybody, this is the first year for this raised bed. So it hasn't quite cured yet. There's a lot of issues that I'll have to go through. It's held up to runoff really well. That was the idea. We live on a slope, so we kind of built this up to where the water would go around the bed so we could regulate it a little bit. So that as an overview, but when we look at the beds themselves, this right here, our zucchini bed, is fantastic. It has worked out exactly the way that we thought it would, or I guess the way we hoped it would, I guess would be a much more accurate way to say it. The potatoes down here, now let's talk about those, because I did a short on, I went through and I filled it full of compost, and that's how I heal my potatoes in here now. I just use the compost because I'm trying to build this area up. So anyway, I just put in some organic compost, and then I put in, I don't know, probably 12 inches or so of straw. Now, whenever I did that, I watered it in really good. The day after, it rained for a full day, and we got a little over 2 inches. So we ended up drowning out this one little spot of potatoes. But I came through the other day and I noticed that the tubers from underneath, and you can see them right there, they're starting to come back. So what I'm hoping is, if it all works out, it'd be really super cool if we go through, we dig them out, and most of them are the big fat potatoes, and then these little guys, you know, that are just now starting to come up, if we get like a little spot where we get a bunch of new potatoes to sort out. I love new potatoes and beans. So this these are the golden wax beans, and they are going nuts. Anybody who watches knows these are my favorites. You can see all the blooms in here. It's really pretty. It smells really good. The bees absolutely love this area in here. But the exciting part is, and keep in mind, it's the first week of June, and we're starting to get like these little guys. But this is what I wanted you to see. These are the first two of the golden wax beans, and I will take these bad boys inside, rinse them off, and I'll just eat them raw. That's how much I love golden wax beans. Anyway, it's really exciting. We're starting to get these. We'll have to start checking them daily now. Beans are one of those things you got to pick. You'll start off with just a few of them, throw them in stir fries, eat them raw, dice them, put them in your salad. Before long though, you'll be sick of picking them, and you'll be getting so many that you'll have to start deciding if you want to give them away or can them. They don't last long after they're picked, so keep that in mind as well. Kind of have a plan ahead of time. We'll move on now. This is probably one of my favorite trellis here in the top garden. These are the pole beans. They're Blue Lake pole beans is what they are. And they are growing fantastic. We haven't started to see a lot of blooms or anything on them, but they look really good. So I like the way the trellises work. In fact, you know, I've said this before, but that's just some recycled material that my uncle was getting rid of some old junk, found it, asked if I wanted it. And of course around here, we'll use anything to grow beans on, and it's worked out well. So the back side of this is full. You can see some of these guys reaching out. I probably need to get out here and twine them up a bit. So let's move on to this top bed. And these are the beefsteak tomatoes. And you can see that guy's about big as the palm of my hand. He's a good sized tomato. I say that and put a leaf right in the camera. The basil is holding on now. Again, if you have basil in your gardens like this, starting in June, you're going to want to come out and start trimming it. This is a great example right there. You can see the front of this right there. This is fixing to go to flower, so you can go ahead, cut that middle part out, or you can just, you know, pinch it out. I'll use my trimmers and go through and just cut it down. These things are incredibly fragrant, go a long way when you cook. So if you don't want a lot of the green in your recipe, but you want all of the flavor, these little buds on the top go a long way. But this is looking good. I have not, knock on wood, I have not seen any of the hornworms yet. We did have one tomato that we had to pick off this morning, and that tomato had, you know, it had been eaten through by some kind of worm, but luckily it was not a hornworm. But we do, anybody who watches the channel knows that we routinely go through and spray the neem oil. But I wanted to show next year, one of the concerns, let me start over. One of the concerns was that this trellis system right here was going to shade out our beefsteak tomatoes. And what ends up happening is the sun, now that it's June 1st, the way that it works its way across the sky, it's fine because it shines right through this area as it goes over. You know, that's west right over there. So as it comes over, you know, and drops over the mountain over there, it perfectly kind of goes down this lane. We got really lucky. I'll be honest, I did not, whenever I put this in there, I was hoping that would happen, but I did not know it. I didn't sit out here, of course, in June of last year and plan it. So it was a very happy surprise for us that it worked out the way we wanted it to. So, you know, we're talking about successes and failures, so I guess we might as well talk about the successes as well. And these tomatoes, to this point anyway, right? So who knows what could happen, but at this point, this bed has also been a success. Especially considering that this was an in-ground garden area before, and now it's getting substantially more growth in these areas. Even though the actual grow area might be a little smaller in these raised beds, the plants themselves are responding remarkably. It's another basil plant you can see down here. These are, see if I can pick that off and show it to you. Yeah, see that? You'll want to take those little, this little seed pod, make sure you get it out so that your plant knows that it needs to keep growing. So, but these Roma tomatoes, we're starting to get several clusters here at the bottom. Let's see if we can get in there. Yeah. Actually, I'm showing this one. I think either I mixed a seed up or I got a random seed in with my Romas, because look at, we'll get in here. See those tomatoes right there? That's on this plant. And if we walk around here to these Romas, to these tomatoes, you can see they are remarkably different, right? Between those and these right here. So who knows? My guess is user error. That's almost always my assumption until I've proven otherwise. So, and then we work our way down, and of course anybody who's been watching knows these are ground cherries and they are loaded. So we're watching this guy's down there. You can see how those start turning yellow compared to like the green of this one. They'll start turning that yellow color and they fall off. That's where they get the name ground cherries, because you don't pick them. You let them ripen and fall and you just pick them up off the ground. Also, they're delicious. Can't wait to show them off. So, and these are the purple hull peas. They haven't quite started flowering or any of that stuff yet, but keep in mind, we didn't put these in until, I believe it was the second week of May. Anyway, it was whenever we took our cabbages out, and those were delicious, by the way. But anyway, we took the cabbages out and we're not going to replant them again until end of August. So that gives us a chance to get this whole row here of purple hull peas. So next year we were considering if the old garden, and I'm sorry, the big garden, if it works out the way we think it might, that it has the potential to, I may move all of my purple hulls out there to the big garden and redo this in bush beans of some sort. If I have my way, I'll probably do another bed of the golden wax beans and try to can some for the winter. They are my favorite, so. Okay, so let's take a second and rate where we're at with the top garden. At this point, I would probably give myself a solid B. We have made some mistakes with the potatoes. You know, obviously I didn't have the bottom leveled out the way I needed to, so it held some water, killed off a small patch of our potatoes. They are coming back, so maybe that'll sort of be a savior towards the end of it. I really like the way the tomatoes and the beans sort of intersect right there. I'm not quite sure if we're gonna get enough purple hulls out of the cabbage bed to justify them. I'm kind of going back and forth on whether or not I should have put in some wax beans or some bush beans of some type. just to make that a little bit, you know, of because we are going to end up canning hopefully some green beans, right? So if you get more, maybe you can can more of them. I won't can any of those wax beans. I'll eat every bit of them. But if I had another bed, maybe I'd have enough to where I did. So I'll just call it, as far as the top garden right now, I'm gonna call it a solid B. So that brings us to the pallet garden area. Now, the pallet garden area, unlike the other raised beds that we've looked at up to this point, this is the second year of the pallet garden. So we put this together early last year, and I'll go ahead and put a link to that video. I put a video on how we built these. So anyway, I'll put a link up top. But right now you can see this right here is crazy. It's what it is. But there's one watermelon plant and 3 cantaloupe plants. We tried this last year in the pallet bed, and it was a super success. We got over 30 melons. We were giving them away. We were eating them. So we're hoping to replicate the success with that. So this bed is doing well. This bed has been a powerhouse all year. It doesn't look great right now, and I'll show you the reason why. If we get in here, you can see we've been harvesting turnip greens. And we do let a few of these go to turnips, but at this time of year, we have so many vegetables to eat, and we don't preserve turnips. We use them in the fall as a staple, but in the springtime we don't really do a whole lot with the actual turnip root itself. We like them for the greens. So we've been cleaning these out, and you can see there's little gaps in there. So this whole area, this whole bed should be out by the end of next week. So by the end of week 23, this bed should be empty and ready to go. The other side of this bed, as we've shown multiple times, are beets, and we got some beautiful beets in there. We have started thinning them out. Now they are going to bolt soon. In fact, we had a carrot that just bolted overnight, so that's something to keep looking out for. So I'm showing this because anybody who watches the channel knows we've been eating out of this bed for a while now. And what's going to end up happening is it's time to pull this bed and let it rest for a couple weeks. And then we're going to go through and redo the whole thing in turnips for the summer. And now we're going to move on to our carrot bed. Again, this has, guys, been a powerhouse. We've been eating carrots out of here for the better part of 2 weeks now. Let's see, you're starting to be able to see carrots poking up through the soil. Yep, see that right through here. So these carrots we've done pretty good with them, okay? I think I didn't plant them, the rows, close enough together, and I think I took too long to thin them. So I made a couple mistakes. We've still gotten some relatively good sized carrots and a bunch of them. But overall, I can do a much better job of thinning and planting the carrots. A lot of that comes from the preparation work. So again, we probably won't have all of them out by the end of week 23, but we should have most of them out. And then the whole plan is to go through, we'll put an inch or so of compost in both of these beds, cover them with leaf from our mulch pile, and we'll let them sit for about a month and a half until it's time to replant them. This bed right here is doing really well. Now this is our pepper bed. We've got bell peppers, and over here we have banana peppers. We also have back there in the back some volunteer carrots that this was our carrot bed last fall, so we just wanted to see what would happen. So, and then if you come in here, we can see we have already picked and eaten some of these bad boys. These are sweet banana peppers. We love them, especially with pulled pork on sandwiches. I actually I prefer the sweet banana peppers sauteed with onions on my fajitas as well. So if you've never tried that, you should give it a shot. It's money. We can see that part of our planting strategy is to have some pollinators, and marigolds go really well with peppers and tomatoes. So over here may be the most productive 4x4 area so far of the entire yard. Right now it's the kale. Before that, this was all covered in lettuce. So we were able to seamlessly move from lettuce into kale and chard. We also have our hot peppers kind of strewn in here as well. So we got 6 of those put in here. Those are from my uncle. He likes the hot peppers. I'm not a huge fan of them. I do want to try to take some of these cayennes when they're young before they get too hot and put in some apple cider vinegar, because I do like a little bit of spice with the vinegar on my pinto beans, but I don't like it to be really spicy. Excuse me. So up here, we have taken out most of the lettuce. It was started to go to bolt on us. So we like to just, this time of year, we'll go through probably the next couple days and we'll eat all of this baby lettuce here with some of that chard and kale for a salad. And then this will be another area where we'll have beans. And the reason we put beans in everywhere, and I say this often, but I'll just repeat it real fast. The beans are good for your soil. They put nitrogen back into your soil. And when you're growing things like, especially leafy greens, the reason beans are so good is because all that green is nitrogen. And anytime you can put nitrogen or a nitrogen fixing plant in to replace a leafy green, it's going to benefit your soil greatly. So this are the cherry tomatoes that we're growing this year. We have cherry tomatoes everywhere already. I am really excited about the way this is looking. Now, I do want to show this because this is intentional. You can see it's bushy all the way down. Now, normally, because cherry tomatoes are a indeterminate variety, I will keep them trimmed back really well just to, avoid the whole bushy thing. I'm trying something a little different this year. I staked them up. I've talked about this. We're going to tie them in a group around these 4 poles. You may not be able to see them, but there are also tomato cages in there that are also providing structure for the bottom. And that way, what I'm hoping is it'll grow up and sort of cascade out. And then I've got a long pole that should go here in the middle that we can sort of do like the big top tent thing set up and use it as a structure for the top of the cherry tomatoes. But who knows? I'm not sure if it's going to work. That's, again, this is only the 2nd year for this pallet garden. We've grown cherry tomatoes with great success. But I want to keep pointing out that when it comes to the evolution of our homestead, each year probably until we get everything settled in the way we feel like it's perfect, in relation to our homestead, it's going to change. We're going to be trying new things. Some things are going to work, some things aren't, as we've showed countless times today. So I'd like to just take a time to say that, so don't be afraid to try things. So the pallet garden, it's one of the few things that I'll probably just say it's an A. The reason being is if you watch our channel, you should know we eat out of this thing all the time. We have literally had a salad every day since I think the 2nd week of May. So it's fantastic. So we come up here, we cut a salad. I don't have anything bad to say about it. 10 out of 10, A+, whatever, however you want to put it. Now that could go down as the year goes on, but I mean, we got a lot of food out of it all summer into the fall, and then it started putting off again this spring. So yeah, this is one of the few areas in the yard right now that I feel satisfied that things are where they belong. So lastly, that brings us to what we call the big garden. Now, the big garden, it's not very developed. It's still really new. We haven't decided actually what we want to do with this area of the homestead yet. So we're sort of working from those gardens back, and we'll use this to fill in most of the holes that we have in our diet for our self-sustainability portion of it anyway. So anyway, we'll get more into that as the years move on, but I did want to go ahead, since it's there, since we took time to plant it and cultivate it, I want to go ahead and include it in this video so I can show you all where this garden is at, and we can talk a little bit about how we feel about it right now and what some of the plans are for the future. You can see how, hopefully you can tell how big of a slope this is on. I'm not sure if the camera does it justice, but it is steep. So it's really difficult to garden in here at this point. So you can see with these rows here, instead of like spraying, what I generally will do is go through with a line trimmer, and I'll just take the line trimmer right down to the dirt and just eat up as many of these weeds as I can all the way around here through these middle rows. So, and what happens though is because this soil is so poor, we get a lot of weeds, and if it dries out, it is super difficult to pull the weeds out of this. But let's go through what we have planted. You can see they're coming up, but this row here and this row here are both okra. Now, Leslie and I, we both enjoy okra, but we prefer pickled okra over any other kind of okra. So that is something to consider. I know a lot of people, especially here in the South, they enjoy fried okra. We don't fry okra often. In fact, my wife does like it, but she doesn't cook, so I don't fry it very often. She's got to ask me to do it. So, and then these next two rows here and here, those are purple whole peas. And I had mentioned when I showed the bed earlier that I'm having a bit of remorse for planting those purple whole peas in the top garden. It's only because these guys are coming up so well. We've put a lot of time into sort of fertilizing the soil, because if I can keep the in-ground beds right, and then what I'm considering doing is maybe doing the no dig method down here and just kind of seeing how that works and using it more for content for the channel, as long as I can still get food for it. You know, we do need the room, and we do enjoy purple whole peas a lot, so we want to make sure we have some of those to dry and have for the winter. So anyway, hopefully this works out. If it keeps going like this, I think it will. We'll get a lot of the purple whole peas out of here. And then this row right here we did in bush green beans, the Blue Lake bush variety. We have the Blue Lake pole variety in the top garden. But this up here, these are looking really good as well. So the strategy we're using is I think the problem, let me start over there. I think the problem that we've had in the past was because of the makeup of this soil here, it requires a substantial more water. Like every couple days you have to water it, compared to the other gardens with the compost and the organic material to hold it. We only have to do it every 3 to 4. Anyway, so I think we've been just keeping this on the same water cycle as all of our other gardens, and that has led to us having either stunted plants or not getting near as much out of them as we could have. So once again, what I did was I went through over the winter and the fall. I put down chicken manure, covered the whole thing in leaves, and then I tilled all of that stuff in, and then we went through and we put all of these nitrogen fixing crops on these top rows. And then if they're successful, what we'll more than likely do is move the okra up here next year, and then down there in those 2 rows, we'll do the nitrogen fixing crops that way. So kind of rotate those through just to see if we can't improve this soil. So overall, I guess I would say that the big garden up here, I would probably give it a D. Yeah, solid D. That sounds about right. There's weeds everywhere. Doesn't really have like a solid foundation. You know, the walkways are still slopes, that sort of stuff. You know, you have to take an actual line trimmer through there to take care of the rows, that kind of thing. So it could use a whole lot of improvement. I will say this though, I'd rather have this than no garden, right? So if we get any purple whole peas, that's better than getting none. If we get any green beans, etc., etc. So I don't want to beat up too much, and I don't want to discourage anybody out there, right? Like, again, any garden is better than no garden. But if I'm being honest with myself, I probably could put more effort into this. I just don't know what I want to do with it yet. So at this point, big garden, it gets a D. Well, as always, I would like to say thank you to all you folks who have made it here till the end. If you have not, please consider subscribing to the channel. It goes a long way in helping us out, and it's free for you. If you enjoyed this content, please consider giving it a like. Until next time, I hope you folks take care of yourselves. Peace.